The cabin was cold. Not the temperature. The air itself. The way it pressed against her skin when the flight attendant's smile dropped. Simone Wade sat in two-way, her leather tote stowed, her seatbelt fastened, her hands folded in her lap. She did not move when the woman in the Navy uniform stopped at her row for the third time. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your boarding pass again." Simone's gaze lifted. "Steady. Unflinching. I showed it to you twice. I need to verify." "You verified." "Seat 2A. That's where I'm sitting." The flight attendant's jaw tightened. Behind her, passengers shuffled past, averting their eyes. A white man in 2C glanced over, then back at his phone. "Ma'am, if you don't cooperate, I'll have to call." "Call who?" The question hung there. Simple. Deadly quiet. The flight attendant stepped back. Hold out her radio. "Security to gate 14. First class. Uncooperative passenger." Simone did not gasp. No trembling lip. Just silence. Heavier than rage. She unbuckled her seatbelt. Stood. Pulled her tote from the overhead bin with hands that did not shake. By the time security arrived, two men in gray uniforms, hands on their belts, she was already walking toward the exit. "Ma'am, we need you to." "I'm leaving," she said. "You don't have to escort me." But they did anyway. Down the jetway, past passengers waiting to board, into the terminal where a crowd turned to stare. And Simone Wade, CEO of Skyward Airlines, traveling under her maiden name to audit her own service standards, let them. She wanted to see who they really were. 18 hours earlier, the decision had been forming for months. Simone sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor of Skyward's Atlanta headquarters, looking at the numbers her head of customer experience had just presented. Complaint rates, satisfaction scores, incident reports, all broken down by route, by cabin class, by time of day, and, though the data didn't say it explicitly, by passenger. Here, Simone pointed at a cluster of red dots on the screen. "What's this?" Her director, Amy Chun, leaned in. "First-class complaints. Last 6 months. These are all filed by black passengers." "Yes." "Why?" Amy hesitated. "Most site profiling. Being questioned about seat assignments. Asked for additional documentation." One woman said she was moved to economy after a gate agent insisted her upgrade must have been a mistake. Simone's jaw set. She built Skyward from a regional carrier to the third largest domestic airline in the country. 15 years. $73 billion in annual revenue. 26,000 employees. And her own passengers, people who looked like her, were being humiliated. "I want names," Simone said quietly. "Of passengers? Of staff. Every employee involved in these incidents. And I want flight manifests, complaint transcripts, security footage if we have it." Amy nodded slowly. "Simone, are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I need to see it myself." She booked the flight under her maiden name, Simone Carter. Purchased a first-class ticket on Flight 1247, Atlanta to LAX. A route flagged in the data. A Tuesday morning departure, staffed by a crew she'd never met. She told no one. Not her COO, not her assistant. Just sent a calendar hold marked personal day and drove herself to the airport. Hartsfield-Jackson at 6 a.m. was a blur of noise and motion. Simone moved through it anonymously, her ID scanned without recognition, her boarding pass printed at a kiosk. She dressed simply, black jeans, a soft gray sweater, her locks pulled back. No jewelry except the platinum wedding band she never removed. At security, the TSA agent waved her through without a second glance. At the gate, she sat far from the podium, watching passengers arrive. Families, business travelers, a woman in Lululemon sipping a green smoothie. The gate agent, a white woman in her 40s, name tag reading Lisa, announced pre-boarding. Simone waited. When they called Zone 1, she joined the line. Lisa took her boarding pass, scanned it, paused. "This says first class." "Yes." "Did you purchase this yourself?" Simone's expression didn't shift. "I did." "Okay. It's just." Lisa looked at her screen, frowned. "It's showing full fare. That's unusual." "Is it? Most first-class passengers use miles or upgrades." "I paid cash." Lisa's smile was tight. "Of course. Enjoy your flight." Simone walked down the jetway. The flight attendant at the aircraft door was younger. Blonde. Bright-eyed. "Welcome aboard." Simone nodded. Found her seat. 2A window. She settled in. The cabin filled slowly. And then the second flight attendant appeared. Older. Sharper. Name tag. Rachel. She stopped at row 2. Can I see your boarding pass? Simone handed it over without a word. Rachel studied it. Too long. This is first class. I'm aware. I just need to make sure. It's my seat. Rachel's mouth thinned. She handed the pass back. Walked to the front galley. Simone heard her whisper to the blonde attendant. Couldn't make out the words. But she saw the glance. The quick look back at her. 5 minutes later, Rachel returned. Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your boarding pass again. And that's when Simone knew. This wasn't confusion. It was choice. She showed the pass. Again. Rachel walked away. Again. The third time, she brought the radio. Simone stood in the terminal, security flanking her, and pulled out her phone. She opened the Skyward employee app, logged in with her executive credentials, found the flight manifest. Flight 1247. Crew assignments. Pilot, Captain Marcus Hall. She scrolled to his contact. Press call. He answered on the second ring. Captain Hall. Marcus, it's Simone Wade. A pause. Ms. Wade. I'm at gate 14. I was just removed from your flight. Silence. I need you to come to the gate. Now. Yes, ma'am. She ended the call. Security shifted beside her. Ma'am, you'll need to come with us too. I'll wait here. You can't. I'm waiting. Something in her voice stopped them. 2 minutes later, the jetway door opened. Captain Marcus Hall emerged. 50-something. Black. 20-year veteran. He saw her. His face went pale. Oh my God. Simone's expression was stone. Marcus turned to security. That's Simone Wade, CEO of Skyward Airlines. Both men froze. Rachel appeared behind Marcus, still holding her radio. She looked at Simone. At Marcus. At the security guards suddenly stepping back. What's? Marcus's voice was ice. He just called security. On our CEO. Rachel's face drained of color. And Simone Wade, unbothered, gestured toward the aircraft. Shall we talk inside? The jetway was silent except for the hum of the air system. Rachel tried to speak twice. Both times, nothing came out. Marcus stood beside Simone, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. Ms. Wade, he said quietly. I didn't know you were. You weren't supposed to. Simone's voice was calm. Surgical. That was the point. She turned to Rachel. How long have you worked for Skyward? Rachel's mouth opened. Closed. 8 years. 8 years. And in that time, how many first-class passengers have you asked to verify their boarding passes 3 times? I was just, answer the question. Rachel's eyes darted to Marcus. Found no help there. I don't know. Guess. Maybe a few. Describe them. I don't. Were they black? Silence. Simone let it stretch. Let Rachel feel it. Then she stepped past her, into the aircraft. The cabin was frozen. Passengers in their seats, eyes wide. The blonde flight attendant stood by the galley, trembling. Simone walked to 2A. Her seat. Still empty. She didn't sit. Instead, she turned to face the cabin. Good morning. My name is Simone Wade. I'm the CEO of Skyward Airlines. A woman in 4B gasped softly. I booked this flight to evaluate our service standards. What I experienced in the last 20 minutes is unacceptable. You all witnessed part of it. I apologize for the disruption. She glanced at Rachel, who stood at the cabin entrance, white-knuckled. This flight will be delayed while I conduct an internal review. If you need to make alternate arrangements, our gate agents will assist you at no charge. If you choose to stay, I'll be on board. In this seat, where I was supposed to be all along. No one moved. Simone sat down. Marcus cleared his throat. I'll be in the cockpit if you need me, Ms. Wade. Thank you, Captain. He disappeared forward. Rachel stood frozen. Rachel. Simone's voice was quiet. Almost gentle. You can return to your duties. We'll talk after we land. Rachel nodded. Or tried to. Then fled to the galley. The blonde attendant, her name tag read Jessica, approached slowly. Ms. Wade, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Simone looked at her. Really looked. Jessica was young. Mid-20s. Knew enough to still be nervous. Did you question my boarding pass? No, ma'am. Did you call security? No. Then you have nothing to apologize for. Simone's tone softened. But you saw what happened. And you didn't speak up. Jessica's eyes filled. I didn't think. I didn't know what to. I understand. But silence protects the wrong people. Remember that. Jessica nodded, wiping her eyes. The cabin slowly came back to life. Passengers shifted, whispered. The man in 2C leaned over. I should have said something. When she kept asking for your pass. Simone turned to him. Why didn't you? He faltered. I thought maybe she had a reason. She did. Just not a good one. He looked away. The flight took off 30 minutes late. Simone spent the first hour working on her laptop, reviewing incident reports, complaint transcripts, the data that had brought her here. Rachel stayed in the galley. Jessica handled the cabin service, over-attentive and shaking. At cruising altitude, Simone closed her laptop, pulled out her phone, sent a text to her COO, David Park. Need you to pull personnel files. All flight attendants with 3 or more passenger complaints in the last 12 months. Separate by nature of complaint. Priority, profiling, discrimination, use of security. His response came in seconds. On it. Are you okay? She typed back, I will be. Then she opened her email. Drafted a message to HR, subject, mandatory review. She didn't send it. Not yet. First, she needed the rest of the picture. Jessica approached with a tray. Water, coffee, a warm cookie. Can I get you anything else, Ms. Wade? Sit down. Jessica blinked. I'm working. Sit. She sat, perched on the edge of 2B, hands folded. Simone studied her. How long have you been flying? 2 years. Do you like it? Yes. Most of the time. Most of the time? Jessica hesitated. Sometimes the passengers are hard. Or the crew. Or both. Tell me about the crew. I shouldn't, Jessica. I'm not asking as a passenger. I'm asking as your CEO. Jessica's breath shook. Rachel's not. She's not always like this. But sometimes, when we have certain passengers, she gets tense. Certain passengers. Black passengers. In first class. Jessica's voice dropped. She says they're usually upgrades. That they don't know first class etiquette. That we have to keep an eye on them. Simone's jaw tightened. Has she ever called security before? Once. On a flight to Miami. A black man in 3A. She said he was aggressive when he asked for a second drink. Was he? No. He was just direct. Simone nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. Jessica stood. Am I going to get in trouble? For being honest? No. For not saying something sooner? Simone looked at her. That depends on what you do next. Jessica nodded and returned to the galley. 3 hours into the flight, Simone walked to the cockpit. Knocked twice. Marcus opened the door. Ms. Wade. Can I come in? Of course. She stepped inside. The first officer, a younger white man, glanced back nervously. Give us a minute, Marcus said. The first officer unbuckled, squeezed past Simone into the cabin. Marcus gestured to the empty seat. Simone sat. I owe you an apology, he said. For what? For not knowing. For not seeing what was happening in my own cabin. Simone shook her head. You can't see everything. That's why I'm here. Still, I've flown with Rachel for years. I never thought. Did you ever see her treat passengers differently? Marcus paused. Maybe. I don't know. I'm up here. I don't see the cabin interactions. But you've heard things. Complaints, yeah? HR handles them. And nothing changes. He looked at her. No, nothing changes. Simone leaned back, looked out at the sky. Endless and blue. That ends today. They landed at LAX 4 hours later. Simone was the last to deplane. She stood at the exit, shaking hands with passengers. Apologizing. Listening. A black woman in her 60s stopped. Took Simone's hand in both of hers. Thank you, she whispered. I've been flying for 40 years. And I've been treated like that more times than I can count. Simone squeezed her hands. Not anymore. When the cabin was empty, Rachel approached. Ms. Wade, not here. Meet me at the Skyward Executive Lounge. 1 hour. Rachel nodded. Left. Jessica lingered. What's going to happen to her? That depends on what she says in the next hour. And to me? Simone looked at her. You're going to be fine. Better than fine, if you keep telling the truth. Jessica nodded. Simone walked off the plane. Through the terminal. Past travelers who had no idea what had just happened 30,000 feet above them. She pulled out her phone. Texted David. I need a full audit. Every complaint filed against cabin crew in the last 24 months. Every use of security. Every incident report. I want patterns. Names. Data. This response. Already started. I'll have it by tonight. Simone smiled. Small. Grim. The work was just beginning. The executive lounge at LAX was empty at 2 p.m. Simone sat in a leather chair by the window, looking out at the tarmac. Planes taxiing. taking off. The machinery of the industry she'd built. Rachel arrived 6 minutes late. Her uniform was wrinkled. Her face blotchy. Sit, Simone said. Rachel sat across from her, hands twisted in her lap. Do you know why I was on that flight? Jessica said you were evaluating service. I was evaluating discrimination. Rachel flinched. Simone opened her tablet, pulled up a file. In the last 18 months, you've been named in 11 passenger complaints. 9 involved black passengers. 7 in first class. All cited the same behavior. Excessive verification requests, questioning seat assignments, hostile tone. Rachel's breathing quickened. You called security on me after I complied with every request. What? I didn't. I wasn't trying to answer the question. Rachel's voice cracked. You didn't seem like you belonged there. Why? I don't know. Yes, you do. Silence. Then, barely audible. Because you didn't look like the other first-class passengers. Simone leaned forward. And what do those passengers look like, Rachel? I didn't mean it like, what do they look like? Rachel's face crumpled. White. They look white. And wealthy. And, not like you. There it was. The truth she'd been circling for 8 years. The assumption baked into every glance, every extra check, every call to security. Simone set the tablet down. I built this airline from nothing. I started with 3 planes and a dream that people who looked like me could fly with dignity. And you, someone I employ, someone I trusted to represent this company, decided I didn't belong in the seat I paid for, in the cabin I designed. Rachel was crying now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry you did it. Or sorry you got caught. Both. I don't know. I never thought. I didn't realize. That's the problem. You didn't think. You just acted. On bias you didn't even know you had. Rachel wiped her face. Are you firing me? Simone studied her. She could. Easily. HR would back it. The complaint record alone justified termination. But firing one person wouldn't fix the system. No, Simone said finally. Not yet. Rachel looked up, eyes red. You're suspended. 2 weeks, unpaid. During that time, you'll complete mandatory bias training. You'll meet with every passenger you've complained about. If they're willing, you'll listen. And when you come back, you'll be on probation. One more complaint, one more incident, and you're done. Understood. Rachel nodded, shaking. This isn't mercy, Simone continued. It's a chance. What you do with it determines whether you keep your job. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the passengers you humiliated. The ones who didn't have the power to fight back. Rachel stood. I will. I promise. She left. Simone sat alone, her chest tight. 1 conversation down. 100 more to go. 3 weeks later, the conference room on the 42nd floor was packed. Every department head. Every regional manager. HR, legal. Communications. Simone stood at the head of the table. We have a problem, she began. And it's not new. It's systemic. She pulled up the data David had compiled. Charts. Graphs. Numbers that told a story no one wanted to hear. In the last 2 years, black passengers in first class were 47% more likely to be asked for additional documentation. 62% more likely to have their seat assignments questioned. 3 times more likely to have security called. Silence. This is happening on our planes. By our employees. Under our logo. The head of HR shifted. Simone, we have anti-discrimination policies. Policies don't matter if we don't enforce them. She clicked to the next slide. Here's what's changing. Effective immediately, mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff. Not a video. Real workshops. With accountability. Second, we're implementing a complaint review board. Independent. Diverse. With the power to recommend termination. Third, any employee who calls security on a passenger without documented cause will be suspended pending investigation. David leaned forward. That's aggressive. Good. It's going to make people uncomfortable. Good. She closed the presentation. I didn't build this airline so people like me could be humiliated at 30,000 feet. If you're not on board with that mission, there's the door. No one moved. Questions? A hand went up. The VP of Operations. What about the employees who push back? Who say this is too much? Simone's gaze was steel. Then they don't work here anymore. The changes rolled out over the next month. Some employees embraced them. Others complained. A few resigned. Simone didn't blink. She attended the first bias training herself. Sat in the back. Watched flight attendants squirm through scenarios that forced them to confront their assumptions. She met with passengers who'd filed complaints, listened to their stories, apologized personally, and she flew, unannounced, under her maiden name, on random routes. Phoenix to Denver, Seattle to Chicago, Miami to Boston. Most flights were fine, professional, warm. But twice, she saw it again. The glance, the extra check, the assumption. Both times, she reported it. Both times, the employee was retrained or let go. Slowly, the complaints dropped. Passengers noticed. Reviews improved. _Washington Post article called Skyward, the airline that's finally getting it right. Simone didn't celebrate. There was too much work left. 6 months after Flight 1247, Simone sat in her office, reviewing quarterly reports. Revenue was up. Customer satisfaction was up. Employee retention was complicated, but improving. A knock at the door. "Come in." Jessica entered. In uniform. "Ms. Wade, I wanted to thank you." Simone looked up. "For what?" "For listening. For changing things. I got promoted. Lead attendant on the Atlanta-London route." Simone smiled. Small but real. "You earned it. I don't know if I would have before. I was too scared to speak up. And now I'm not." Jessica left. Simone turned back to the window. Outside, a plane lifted into the sky. Skyward's logo bright against the fuselage. She thought about the woman in the terminal. The one who'd thanked her. Who'd flown for 40 years and been treated like she didn't belong. Simone couldn't undo those 40 years. But she could make sure the next 40 were different. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Flying to San Francisco tomorrow. Heard you might be auditing that route. Just a heads up. Crew's been great lately." She typed back. "Good. Let's keep it that way." Then she stood. Grabbed her coat. She had a flight to catch. Not as CEO this time. Just as a passenger. Because the work wasn't finished. It never would be. But every flight, every conversation, every policy, it all added up. To something better. Something closer to the dream she'd had 15 years ago, when she'd started this airline in a borrowed office with nothing but vision and stubborn hope. She walked to the elevator. Pressed the button. And as the doors closed, Simone Wade, CEO, auditor, truth teller, allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Not because she'd won, but because she'd made sure they couldn't win again. The fight would continue. But so would she. Unbothered. Unmoved. Exactly as she'd always been.